In the darkest corners of the mind, where chaos whispers and shadows dance, a fire begins to burn. Quiet, fierce, unstoppable. It's the spark that turns madness into clarity, confusion into vision, and broken dreams into unstoppable power. They called you crazy once, laughed as you stumbled, and doubted every step you took. But now, the game has changed. Now, they watch in awe as that same madness becomes the blueprint for genius. This isn't just a story about success, it's a battle for your soul, a war fought in silence, and a victory no one saw coming. Welcome to Twist Mind, where the insane become legends. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you're ready to own your power and rewrite your story. The beginning is never loud. It doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It creeps in slowly, like a shadow no one notices, like a thought you're too scared to say out loud. It starts when you begin to question everything you've been told. When you sit in a crowded room, surrounded by people who all seem fine with average, and suddenly you feel like you're suffocating. Something inside you starts to twitch. Something small, something loud. And that's something. That's the beginning of what they call madness. But it's not madness. It's the refusal to obey a system designed to break you down into another brick in the wall. It's the moment you realize that the path they praise, go to school, get a job, stay in line, die quietly, was never made for someone like you. And when you step off that path, even just once, they notice. They watch you like you've committed a crime. They whisper behind your back. They laugh when you speak. They look at you not as someone brave, but as someone broken. They call you crazy, not because you are, but because your truth threatens their comfort. You feel alone, like no one sees what you see. But you keep going, because deep down, you know this so-called madness is the only real thing you've ever felt. It's the fire they tried to extinguish. It's the voice you've silenced for too long. It's the rebellion your soul has been begging for. You don't want to fit in anymore. You want to break out. You want to feel alive. And to them, that's madness. But to you, it's freedom. And freedom never comes wrapped in kindness. It comes with isolation. It comes with loss. You lose friends. You lose comfort. You lose the safety of being accepted. But you gain something bigger. You gain yourself. The real, the you that doesn't beg to be understood. The you that doesn't flinch when they laugh. The you that doesn't need their approval. And yes, it hurts. The nights are long. The silence is heavy. You wonder if maybe they were right. Maybe you really are crazy. But then the light flickers again. That same fire. That same pull. That same vision that started it all. And you remember, you're not lost. You're just waking up. You're not broken. You're finally aware. Madness is simply what they call the process of transformation. They use that word because they fear what you're becoming, because you remind them of what they gave up on, because your courage exposes their compromise. So let them talk, let them judge, let them keep their quiet, hollow lives. You're not here to follow, you're here to disrupt. You're here to burn down the rules and write your own. This is the beginning of madness, and madness is the birthplace of every genius the world ever tried to silence. There comes a point in your journey where everything around you goes quiet, not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the type that rings in your ears like a warning, like a storm that's hiding in the wind. It's not the world that changes first, it's you. The moment you begin moving differently, thinking differently, wanting more than what they told you to settle for, the silence follows. It's the silence of people you thought would always be there. It's the silence of those who once smiled in your presence, but now look away like they can't handle the reflection of your courage. You realize that silence speaks louder than any insult ever could. It's not rejection that hits the hardest. It's the absence of encouragement, the absence of support, the absence of anyone truly understanding what you're building inside that chaotic, brilliant mind of yours. And yet this silence, it becomes your weapon. At first it feels like punishment, like the world is punishing you for daring to dream beyond its limitations. You look around and wonder where everyone went. Where are the cheers? Where is the support? Where is the recognition for the battles you're silently fighting day after day after day? But that's the thing. They don't clap for you when you're building. They don't celebrate you when you're in the dark, bleeding and shaping yourself into something new. Because people don't notice the grind. They only show up when the lights turn on. But you keep going. You wake up with no one watching. You fail with no one catching you. You win in silence. You cry where no one sees. And slowly, that silence, it stops feeling like a curse. It starts to feel like a classroom. You begin to learn things no one ever taught you. You learn that validation is a drug, and freedom is the detox. You learn to trust your own voice more than the echo of others. You learn to build without praise, and that's when the foundation becomes unbreakable. When no one is watching, your integrity is tested. When no one is clapping, your passion is refined. When no one is listening, your voice gets stronger. And one day, when they finally hear you, when they finally look up and notice the beast you've become, you'll smile, not out of revenge, but out of understanding. Because you now know the silence wasn't against you. It was your proving ground. It was your fire. It was the furnace that melted your weakness into steel. They may never understand what it took. They may never acknowledge what you went through. But that doesn't matter anymore, because the silence that once haunted you has now become the shield you wear. It no longer hurts you. It protects you. Because you know who you are now. You know what you've built. You know what it cost. And you don't need noise. You don't need recognition. You've already heard the loudest voice, the one that came from inside you when the whole world went quiet. There's always a moment that doesn't come with warning signs or background music, a moment that looks like defeat but is actually the spark of your rebirth. It's not a pretty scene. It's not framed like a motivational quote. No, it's messy, violent, raw. That moment when everything inside you finally snaps. When you can't fake the smile anymore. When you're tired of being the polite version of yourself just to make others comfortable. It's when your hands are shaking not from fear, but from holding in everything you were too afraid to say, too afraid to become. That breaking point, that invisible line inside you once crossed, changes everything. You reach a point where the pain isn't just emotional, it's physical. Your chest tightens. Your thoughts scream louder than traffic. You start to question if you're the problem. You start to believe maybe they were right. Maybe you're too intense. Maybe you should have listened. Maybe the dream was too big, too stupid, too far. And then, silence. Not the silence of peace, but the silence after the scream inside you dies down. And in that silence, something else rises. Not fear, not sadness, but decision. You decide you're done explaining, done apologizing, done dimming your light because it made others squint. That's when the real transformation begins, not when you achieve something big, but when you no longer need permission to be dangerous. You rise, not with applause, but with scars, not with motivation, but with rage turned into precision. That's the shift no one sees. The shift that happens in the bathroom mirror, in the middle of the night, after another day of swallowing your voice. You don't become strong by lifting weights. You become strong by carrying your own doubt every damn day and still showing up. You become strong when the pain doesn't go away, but you walk with it anyway. When the tears dry, but the hunger stays. When you choose to keep building even when everything around you says quit. That breaking point, that was never the end of you. That was the creation of you. The weak version of you, dead. The silent version, gone. The version that waited for the world to understand, buried. And what rose from that grave was someone who doesn't beg to be seen, but forces the world to look. You don't walk the same anymore. You don't speak the same. Your energy shifts rooms now, because you carry fire in your veins and thunder in your silence. You learn that the world doesn't give you power, you take it. And when they finally ask, when did you change? You'll know the exact night. You'll know the exact tear that hit the floor before your heart turned to steel. And you'll smile, not because it didn't hurt, but because it built you. That breaking point, that was your origin story. The birth of the version they're now too late to stop. They only see the surface now. The cool confidence, the sharpened words, the steady rise. But what they'll never see, what they'll never talk about, is the grind that bled underneath it all. The nights you sat in silence, staring at the wall, questioning your own sanity. The mornings where your body felt like it had been fighting a war inside your chest, and no one noticed. The world only recognizes results, never the process. They never saw you sitting in rooms with your thoughts spinning like knives, cutting through every ounce of doubt you carried. They never saw the hours you spent teaching yourself what no one else offered to explain. They didn't see the coffee gone cold beside notebooks full of scratched out ideas. They didn't hear the voice in your head that kept whispering, "You're not good enough." And they definitely didn't see how many times you whispered back, "Watch me." You didn't rise because of luck. You didn't glow up overnight. You were in the dark for a long time, fighting, learning, adapting. You didn't complain. You didn't beg. You just built. You worked when you were tired, studied when you were lost, practiced when no one clapped, and failed 1,000 silent deaths behind closed doors. You created systems in chaos. You became your own mentor when no one answered your calls. You turned your bedroom into a battlefield. You gave up comfort. You sacrificed sleep. You skipped parties, ignored trends, and silenced distractions. Not because you were better, but because you were obsessed. And obsession? That's the part they never mention in success stories. It's not romantic. It's not glamorous. It's a war with your own excuses. It's showing up when nothing around you changes. It's screaming into the void and answering yourself because there's no one else left. You faced setbacks that would have broken other people, but you kept moving, not because you weren't in pain, but because pain had become part of your routine. You carried that weight every day and still performed like it wasn't crushing you. And now they wonder how you got here. They ask questions like you had a secret, as if there's a magic switch that turns you into a force overnight. But you know the truth. The grind made you. The silence shaped you. The suffering trained you. The rejection refined you. You didn't cheat. You didn't fake it. You endured it. And the scars? They're not something you hide. They're the reason you walk with pride. Because every step forward was earned with blood, sweat, and insane, relentless belief in something no one else could see. That's the grind they'll never understand. That's the part of your story they'll never post. Because it's ugly. It's uncomfortable. But you lived it. And now every move you make carries the weight of the nights they never noticed. The grind that turned a ghost into a storm. There came a point where the pain stopped feeling like punishment and started to feel like preparation. It didn't vanish, it evolved. Every disappointment that once crushed your chest became a lesson carved into your bones. Every betrayal that left you hollow became a signal flare in your memory, warning you never to trust the same softness again. Pain wasn't just something you survived. It became your map, your blueprint, your strategy. You began to treat every scar like data. You studied your wounds. You paid attention to what broke you and why. You dissected every failure, not to feel worse, but to understand how to strike back smarter. You stopped reacting and started calculating. The person who used to flinch at every insult. Gone. Replaced by someone who listens without blinking. Someone who stores every blow like it's fuel. Someone who knows that pain is just information delivered in blood. You learned how to watch people closely, how to hear what they don't say, how to read lies in the curve of a smile. You learned to sit in rooms filled with silence and still hear the truth loud and clear. Because pain sharpens your senses. It strips away your naivety. It teaches you the rules of the game, the real game, the brutal one. You stopped wishing for kindness and started building armor. You stopped hoping for understanding and started designing a fence, not out of hate, but out of evolution. You realized the world isn't built for those who wait for permission. It rewards those who endure quietly, observe closely, and strike when no one sees it coming. And strike you did. Not loudly, not with rage, but with terrifying precision. You moved in silence, but every move came from the lessons pain taught you. You stopped playing the victim. You became the architect. You turned triggers into tools. And while they still saw you as emotional, sensitive, unstable, you smiled. Because they didn't know what you knew, that the most dangerous person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who has bled in silence, suffered in secret, and still walks without limping. That's who you became. You don't show pain anymore, you use it. You don't cry out loud, you plan in the dark. Every ounce of heartbreak, every sleepless night, every ignored message, every closed door, it all turned into strategy. You became unpredictable, controlled, calculated. You mastered timing. You mastered energy. You mastered the art of silence as a form of dominance. Because when pain stopped controlling you, you started controlling everything else. Now they don't know what you're thinking. They don't know when you'll act. They don't even know what you want. That's power. That's mastery. That's what happens when pain becomes more than just suffering. It becomes your strategy, your hidden advantage, your silent ally. And the best part? They'll never know how many times you were on the edge. They'll only see how surgical your rise became. You didn't escape pain, you weaponized it. One day, without warning, you changed. No announcement, no celebration, no look at me now moment. Just a quiet shift, a different energy when you walked in, a new sharpness in your stare, a heavier presence in your silence. The same people who used to ignore you started watching you a little longer. They felt it. They couldn't explain it, but they felt it. Something was different. You didn't act the same, didn't chase the same, didn't flinch the way you used to. You weren't seeking validation anymore. You weren't asking for attention. You weren't apologizing for your intensity. It was as if you had burned your old self alive and walked out of the ashes wearing calm like a weapon. The glow-up wasn't physical, it was psychological, mental, emotional. You didn't just grow, you hardened. You didn't just improve, you evolved into someone completely unrecognizable to your past. But the people who once looked down on you couldn't understand it, because they weren't there in the dark. They didn't see what it cost. they didn't feel the war you fought in silence. They didn't watch you collapse over and over, only to get up again, angrier, smarter, colder. To them, your glow-up came out of nowhere. But you know the truth. You earned it in the places no one sees. You earned it through pain that didn't get posted, through nights that didn't make it to stories, through silent battles that had no audience. Your growth came from grit, from obsession, from decisions made when no one was clapping. You didn't just rise, you rebuilt. And what you built was something they now don't know how to label. You're no longer the underdog they felt superior to. You're no longer the weird one they mocked. You're a storm in human form, a blueprint they wish they understood, but never studied. They ask dumb questions now. What changed? How did you do it? They pretend they've always believed in you, but deep down, they're terrified. Because the person you are now, you're untouchable. Not because you're perfect, but because you're forged, hardened, real. You carry yourself like someone who doesn't need to be liked, and that's what draws them in. They crave your energy now. They copy your moves. They mimic your style. They repeat your words. But they'll never recreate your rise, because they missed the fire. They skipped the pain. They don't have the blueprint because they never lived the breakdown. That glow they see now, that light in your eyes, that's not success. It's survival shining through. It's the reflection of someone who made it out of their own mental hell and didn't come back soft. You came back surgical, disciplined, dangerous, and the world doesn't know what to do with someone who can no longer be manipulated, broken, or doubted. They call it a glow-up because they can't handle the truth. It's not glow. It's power. It's clarity. It's the silent reward for choosing yourself when no one else did. Isn't it strange how the world loves to rewrite history? The same voices that once mocked you, called you crazy, and whispered behind your back now wear your words like trophies. The same people who turned their backs when you stumbled now ask for your advice. But let's not pretend they ever believed in you. They never did. They only waited for you to fail, for you to break, for you to fall into the silence they expected you to. But you refused. You didn't just survive their disbelief, you crushed it. What they called madness was never insanity. It was vision, wrapped in chaos and misunderstood brilliance. You saw what others ignored. You dreamed what others dismissed. You fought what others surrendered to. And now, the same world that branded you as broken is forced to admit you were the blueprint all along. But here's the truth they don't say. You don't become a genius by following their rules. You become a genius by shattering every expectation and building your own. You become a genius by walking alone through the storm, by staring into the dark and refusing to blink. Genius is not born from approval. It's forged from rebellion, pain, and relentless obsession. It's waking up every day knowing the odds are stacked against you and still choosing to move forward anyway. You transformed your crazy into clarity, your doubts into discipline, your scars into strategy. And the irony? They now want to study your every move, copy your style, mimic your mindset. But replication is shallow. They'll never know the nights you cried alone, the fears you faced in silence, the battles with yourself that never made headlines. Genius isn't just talent or luck. It's the refusal to accept the world's limits and the courage to rewrite them with blood, sweat, and broken dreams. You didn't wait for their validation. You created your own kingdom in the chaos they left behind. And now they call it vision. But you know better. It was madness in the beginning. Madness that refused to die. Madness that became your greatest weapon. So when they praise you now, smile quietly. Smile because you remember the loneliness, the pain, the disbelief. Smile because you know genius isn't what they see, it's what they fear. And most importantly, smile because the same madness that made you different also made you unstoppable. The next time they call you crazy, remember this: every legend was once misunderstood, every genius was once doubted, and every victory was born from a war within. Your story isn't over, it's just beginning. Keep fighting, keep rising, keep turning your madness into the vision that breaks the world's limits. If this spoke to you, please like, comment, and subscribe to Twist Mind, because your power is waiting to be unleashed.